Welcome to the Growth Officers Association. I'm Deirdre Murray on the Board of Growth Officers. A warm welcome to today's guest, Crystal Philcox, who's former GSA executive. Welcome, Crystal. Just a few words about the Growth Officers Association. It was launched in 2022. It's a nonprofit 501c3 membership organization focused on expanding the network for growth leaders in the GovCon market. And GOA, it's called, provides a forum for growth executives in any role with CGO, CFO, CEO, CRO, to connect and explore topics around growth. Today's podcast is part of Growth Officers Association ongoing and very popular podcast series featuring GovCon luminaries. And today we have a luminary. Welcome, Crystal.
Thank you so much.
All right, here we go. Crystal, you have a really interesting and illustrious background in public service. So, and certainly with IRS, GSA more recently. Want to share a little bit about your background?
Sure. I have been in federal government my whole career. Started as an intern and just loved it and wanted to stay. Didn't ever want to do anything else. So, spent a lot of my early career doing technology project management and big program management, and then left IRS actually after multiple different positions there as the chief of staff, and then came over to GSA into the technology transformation service and ran operations there for a while. And so that was a lot of fun. And so then I got to move over to the information technology category in GSA, where I got to go out and talk with CIOs and infrastructure directors and telecom directors and, everyone about what they wanted in their agencies, how they wanted to run the technology in their agencies. And then we were out talking to vendors about what they had to offer and how we could match those two up in government-wide contracts. So after that, worked on enterprise strategy for a little while. I got to create the enterprise data architecture in the organization, as well as a site that organized buying tools called buy.gsa.gov. So that was a lot of fun, and then moved over to the technology, transportation, and logistics area, where we basically ran a $2 billion P&L and a couple of big major businesses that were shared services across government. So a lot of fun. It's been a great career, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Wow. To that point about the distinguished career in public service, what does it mean to be a good public servant?
Yeah, I think this is also part of how I really got started in customer experience too. Very early in my career, I realized that that your constituencies, no matter who that is, if for your agency, right, whether it's small businesses or veterans or taxpayers, right, they are the reason that you're there, and they're the most important piece of why you do what you do. And just the scope and scale of public service as well is just overwhelming, really, when you come in and you're not used to the vastness of it, and how complicated some of the problems are. And so I love problem solving, and there was never a lack of problems to solve in public service. It was great.
Excellent. All right, so now fast forward, we're at April 28, and a lot has happened since January 20. So share with us a little bit about what you're doing post GSA.
Yeah, well, I just launched Philcox Consulting, and so excited about that, and just hope that I can be out there helping folks kind of navigate this changing acquisition landscape that's going to be out there, and just putting ideas out into the space, and creating discussion, debate, doing a lot of knowledge sharing, just trying to spread goodness across the space, and work with folks who really want to think strategically about how to position themselves.
Excellent. And congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
you.
Big news. That's big news. Obviously, a lot has happened since January 20 with a lot of Doge actions and staff cuts and contract cancellations, et cetera, and really shaking up the whole world of federal procurement. So share with us, since you lived through some of that when you certainly when it kicked off on January 20, your thoughts on the environment now versus prior to.
Wow. We are on the brink of seeing so much change in federal acquisition and federal contracting, right? You've got basically 4 EOs out there, right? You've got the executive order that's consolidating buying into GSA, right? It also sort of designates GSA as the executive agent for GWACs, all the GWACs, which leans in a little bit to some contract consolidation there. You've got the executive order that is redoing the FAR, right? Pulling a group together to rethink those regulations and only keep in what is absolutely required by statute. So probably see a lot of buying guides and maybe some interim guidance come out from that. That'll be a big change. You've got an executive order that requires the Department of Defense to look at their defense acquisition regulations as well. So we'll see some changes there. Also asks them to lean into commercial buying a little more than they have been, and then there's another EO that asks civilian agencies to lean into commercial buying, right? So much change in the space coming all at once, right? And if you think about how that's going to work, right? The first part of that is GSA then starts to consolidate buying into GSA, and they've got a few agencies that they're working with now, right? That they've already started that with, and so they'll start to work out their procedures and their practices, their policies, their templates. They're great at this. They do this all the time, right? And then as more agencies come in, you'll see more and more of how GSA is going to lean into that, and I think we'll see it come out, and then industry can start to figure out, right? Okay, how can I start to work in this, and how can I start to interact in this landscape, right? And so, I think the biggest concern is staffing with GSA. They don't really do this, right? They haven't done this before, and so and they've been losing staff. So I think one of my biggest concerns is, do they have the people to handle it? And the FAR changes should help. I think new technology that they've talked about coming in should help. So hopefully reduce that burden for everyone, for both GSA staff and for vendors who are trying to interact with GSA. But it's not then just, if you don't have enough staff, you're also thinking about, okay, how can I reduce duplication in all of this? So then you start thinking about contracts, and am I going to consolidate contracts? How is that going to work, right? And so because you only have enough staff to manage so many contracts, right? And you need to think carefully about that. So I think watching for those kinds of signals coming out are going to be important. I think we should also really watch carefully for the National Defense Authorization Act when that comes out, because there's a lot of procurement policy that happens there. And so you might see, some mentions of ways that they might change things up and how they might start to consolidate contracts. So that should give us some signals when that comes out as to which direction they're going to go. Yeah.
And the NDA is always an important piece of legislation for sure. Good point.
Yeah.
To that point, now that you're on the other side, and you have the advantage that a lot of people don't. You see it from your prior experience inside the agency. How should contractors be positioning themselves for success in this new era?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that there's so much change that's going to be happening at once, right? You're going to be consolidating the buying. You're going to be changing the policies and the regulations. You're going to be focusing on commercial buying. So it will change the way that people compete in the federal marketplace. And so, the most adaptive vendors are the ones that are going to thrive. Really, you have to be adaptive in this environment. And I would say, right now in the short term, you want to be thinking about maybe preserving some capital, maybe, partnering with some commercial product and service providers, or leaning into your own practice on the commercial side if you have that. And then this administration is not very favorable to integrators and to wrappers, things that look like wrappers, right? They want to buy direct.
Yeah.
So positioning yourself as integral to the delivery of whatever that agency is buying is going to be really important, right? You cannot be an organization that is overseeing an implementation. You've got to be an organization that is integral to the actual delivery.
Great point. Great point. Yes, they certainly focused on, very early on with the executive order, focused on the top 10 consulting services contractors. And they've been laser focused on that.
Yes, they did.
With your crystal ball, the future of GovCon, what will the federal government and the GovCon market look like in 2030?
Ooh, 2030. Well, hopefully we will be done with the long waits, right? Hopefully they will have some new technology in that can really jazz things up, make the experience of working with federal government a lot easier. I can see a much bigger focus on innovative and emerging technology. You might also see a slight shrinkage in the industrial base, right? I hate to say that, but we saw this happen a little bit in category management when GSA started category management. About 5 years in, you saw a slight shrinkage in the industrial base in both the large and mid-size and the smalls, and so, that was a time when they were really focused on expanding the industrial base, and with all of the changes going on, they may not be as focused there at this point. So, really being adaptive and understanding how to play in this environment is going to be really important, so you are not one of those casualties that gets shrunk down.
Good counsel, good counsel. Speaking of advice from industry, there was an interesting article in early March in Washington Technology. And they basically were outlining the steps that contractors can take. And it was particularly during these challenging times, such as maintaining close relationship with customers, obviously.
Yes.
Emphasize concrete results and outcomes, and find growth areas. I know you offered some advice earlier, but what advice, if you had been a part of that article, what advice would you offer in addition to the government contractors?
Yeah, you've got to be out talking to folks. And with more commercial purchasing going on, agencies are going to want to understand how what is out in the commercial marketplace actually fits into what they do, or are they going to have to change what they do in order to make it fit, right? And can they start that now as they're doing the rebuild, right, of whatever they need to build back up? Or right size, right? How do they make it so that it fits more into a commercial model? And so being out there talking to folks, helping them understand that, right? That's going to be really important. Responding to RFIs, that's going to be really important coming up. And being able to just influence how opportunities get created, right? Being out talking to folks, talking to the Hill, talk to the Hill about, if you are headquartered in their district, they should know how you are creating jobs for their district. So, being out talking to folks is going to be really important, and really trying to influence how those commercial opportunities get created, I think is key.
You mentioned earlier, and I know when you were in the government still at GSA, very focused on CX, customer experience. So with all those experience, what should federal agencies focus on when it comes to delivering better services to customers?
Yeah, I'm so passionate about customer experience, customer excellence. I've been doing it most of my career, and I can remember when when my project manager friends and I would sit around and we'd say, and contracts weren't organized this way back then, right? But we would say, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we could just get the vendors in a room who are building this thing for us, right? And get the users in the same room and have them talk to each other. Wouldn't that be great, right? We used to dream about it. And so, now we just call that agile and human-centered design. It's something I've been doing my whole career. I think it's so incredibly important, really focusing on the voice of the customer. And so I'm just excited that I can, be part of the CX milieu and really help other folks understand how this can be done, give them great tools, and make it a little bit more professional than it used to be for us.
Excellent. Yes, I knew you were passionate about it because I witnessed that when you were still at GSA for sure. Culture. This topic has come up with a lot of the other podcasts we've done during the series, but plays a very key role in an organization. Thinking back with your time at GSA, let's call it, what role does culture play within GSA?
Oh gosh, eat strategy all the time, right? Culture does, and so when I start to work with an organization, I can really tell if that organization has identified their values, right? So you might see some organizations really lean into those values, and you'll see like their leadership would be really focused on being intentional about their leadership and empathetic. They will probably maybe have a customer excellence play that they're focused on. They might be really focused on metrics that are outcome metrics that matter, right? And measuring employees on outcome metrics that matter. So there's a lot of ways that culture shows up in an organization. I think the most important way that culture shows up is through really focusing on the employee experience. So employees are going to know if you have their back, right? They're going to know if they can feel comfortable raising issues and concerns about what's happening. If they can talk about, hey, this isn't really working for customers. This new thing that we're rolling out isn't really working for customers or for users, and so that that's what you want happening in an organization. If you don't have that and employees don't feel comfortable to share those things, you're going to bury your risk. Just bury it, and you're not going to ever know what it is. And so you want employees to be thinking about how to continually improve the work that they do, and they're not going to do that unless they feel empowered and they feel like they can actually affect change. So I think that's the most important part of culture, and the most important things that an agency can do there.
Excellent. Next gen, obviously, I'm sure you're passionate about that. I'm sure you must have some advice in terms of how contractors can build the pipeline for the next era of leaders. How's that done?
Yeah. I think that it's really important to have a mix of people in your organization. So, you've got to have those folks that have been there a long time, that really understand the procedures and the policies and know how things are done, right? They know the culture of the organization. And then you've also got to have fresh ideas coming in. So a mix is really important. There's a lot of feds out there right now looking for jobs. So a lot of opportunity. They really know how the systems work. They know, what those words are in the RFPs that you should really clue in on, right? So lots of opportunity to bring in fresh talent right now. And for folks who are kind of next gen in these in vendor organizations, honestly, this is kind of the opportunity of a lifetime, right? There is so much happening right now. And if you can stay ahead of that, be adaptive, you have incredible opportunity to make a difference. Eventually, the folks who are doing the teardown right now and creating, some of this space and getting rid of spending and creating space for efficiencies, they're not going to be there forever, right? In fact, some of them will probably leave sooner than later.
Right.
And then you'll see maybe this period of a build back, right? And you'll start to see not a lot of additional spending coming in, but enough to have some opportunities start to float out there so that you can start to really help agencies get back into right size what they were doing, get back on their feet, lean into those emerging technology areas that they might need. So a lot of opportunities, and I would just say position yourself as integral to the success of that of that implementation, right? Don't try to position yourself as a integrator or a wrapper. Position yourself as being integral to the implementation.
That's great.
Yeah.
So seizing the moment. Sounds
Yes.
like this is the moment.
It's the moment.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Indeed.
Yeah.
AI, obviously, is talked a lot about. There was a recent speech given at the National Press Club by Michael Dell. And he talked about the dominant theme throughout the next decade is AI.
Yeah.
Some government industry experts view AI as up there with the pantheon with the Industrial Revolution, electricity, and the internet for its ongoing and lasting impact to government, business, and society.
Yeah.
So first, kind of your vantage point from former government perspective, how are they using it?
Yeah.
And then also it'd be interesting to hear how you are using it in your professional life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're right. It's going to be, it's going to be absolutely mind blowing as we watch it roll out here, right? So, I think the most interesting things to me about AI are, first of all, the way that it's teaching itself. That is something brand new, right? It's not like the things we used to do where we would just kind of create data models and run things through these data models, right? It's actually maybe doing some self-learning there, and AI agents that are starting to get created to actually do things. And the other thing that blows my mind is, could we badge these AI agents, right? And could that work for us, and could that become, maybe some of our workforce? And so all of these things are, I think, super interesting to think about as we start to rebuild and we start to expand our AI capabilities. But the thing that I think is most concerning for me is I worry that we are not, because we're doing it so quickly, that we may not have quite enough documentation on how this is being done, right? And I just don't want to, I've seen us get in a place where 20 years, 30 years after COBOL, we're having to unravel all the COBOL code because the people are gone and we don't know how it works, and right? And so I don't want to get in that place with AI. So really having good documentation around your AI, I think, is going to be important, and understanding not just how the code works, but continually monitoring how it's teaching itself and the kinds of outputs it's giving you, and whether those outputs are changing over time, I think are going to be really important to think about as we start to implement AI in government. Yeah. And so, personally, I'm just trying to learn about prompt engineering, right? Isn't everyone trying to learn about prompt engineering? And I think every single person will have to learn that. And then, I'm using it as a first reader, sometimes as a first draft. It helps me know what I don't want to say sometimes, right? Yeah. And first reader, a research assistant, right? So there's, it's great for that kind of thing right now.
It's a great tool.
It is a great tool.
It's a great tool, yeah. Certainly a lot of focus on this administration. There have been 2 executive orders that have come out recently on AI.
Yep.
Let's pivot to volunteerism. You actually epitomize the spirit of volunteerism. You certainly participate a lot into community, industry, government associations, etc. Tell us more about why that's important. volunteerism?
Oh, it's, I think when I was coming up, I didn't have opportunities to really go out and learn and understand what was happening in the industry, in agencies. I didn't have a way to figure out what are those best practices that are happening in agencies all over government that do kind of the same thing I do, or share knowledge, right? I just did, or understand what vendors had to offer in terms of emerging technology. You had to actually go meet with individual people, and maybe you got one that had some good stuff, and maybe you didn't, right? So for me, just being able to bring that kind of knowledge sharing across government and across industry, and make sure that it's easy to access that kind of information, and that people are sort of level set in what's going on and what they have the opportunity to do, right? You'll see, I mean, if that's happening, you're going to see a lot more high quality RFPs coming out because people understand what's out there in the space, and so to me that's really, really important, and it's something I never had when I was coming up, and I like just doing a lot of that knowledge sharing.
Yeah. Excellent. You've been very involved in associations. There's quite a few in the GovCon space, obviously. Growth Officers Association is one of them, but there are others as well, with Professional Services Council, ACTI, etc. During this period of transition and change, how can associations like those I mentioned support and help navigate this unique period of time that we're in?
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be so critical. It's going to be so critical. So I've used associations in my career a number of times. I remember when we were first trying to, bring a little more standardization to the way cloud offerings were happening in government. We went out to an association and said, hey, can you bring some people together? We'd like to talk to them. And we did a little focus group and understood, how offerings were being presented. We use them in GSA when we, vendors are our customers too, right? So really, when we're looking at that vendor experience and working on catalog management, so they're great for something like that, and they help really bring forward the voice of government contractors, which is so important because you can't be successful as an agency unless you have government contractors that are engaged with you, right? And so there's so many ways that they help, and I'm just very interested in continuing to support that.
So it sounds like now that you've transitioned to the private sector, you will probably spend some time and energy and resources on associations.
Yeah, I hope to.
Excellent.
Sure.
They need you. That's a good
Great.
thing. All right. So if you wanted to wrap up, what key takeaways would you like to share with this audience?
Okay. Well, there's a couple I would emphasize, right? One is stay adaptive, right? Make sure that you are adapting to the environment that you're in. Make sure that you're out talking to folks. Talk to agencies, be up on the hill, right? Influence as many, the way that opportunities get created, right? That's going to be absolutely key. There's not going to be a whole lot of opportunities, right, coming out immediately, but as they start to come out, and there will be a few that leak out, as they start to come out, you want to be out there influencing the way that those get presented to industry, and responding to RFIs is going to be really important. So mostly I would just say, be out talking to folks. It'll help you focus on your capture strategies, right? If you're out talking to folks, and so that's probably one of the most important things right now.
Outstanding. Yeah. That's great advice. With that, thank you, Crystal.
Yeah, thank you.
A great conversation, and it's all part of a series that we have underway with the Growth Officers Association, focus on the GovCon luminaries. So thank you for your time today. Also a shout out to Carasoft, our partner, and to Luis Hernandez-Ruiz, our production lead. Stay in touch with us. Thanks for listening in. Have a great day.